informative, open meeting concerning the business of education in our school corporation. School patrons who wish to address the board may do so during the agenda time designated to hear patrons' concerns. We will not discuss in open session any individual school student or school employee or descriptions of such people, which will leave little doubt as to the identity of these people. Dr. Garber, Superintendent of Schools, and myself will be available after the meeting to discuss any concern expressed by the patrons. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll stand and join with me in pledging allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and again, welcome to our school board meeting this evening. We appreciate you all being here. And we'll start out our meeting tonight with a spotlight where we're going to hear from Mr. Belthouse in middle school.
Yeah, Mr. Belthouse, would it be best for the board to come down to view the things that you're going to talk about, or do you prefer that we stay up here?
It might actually help if we came down, especially for a couple of things for sure. Yeah.
We'll move down. Enjoy it.
So while they're getting ready, and Mr. Bradley's kind of placing students where he wants them to go, I'd like to just give everybody a few insights into some of the things that the middle school students have been up to this year. So we're going to let you see and hear from a number of our students and some programs and some opportunities that our students have had. And then we're also going to, if we have time, talk a little bit about hopefully what's ahead. So right now, I'm going to give it up to Mr. Jacob Bradley and the middle school choir. They have some numbers that they'd like to do for you.
Far away, far off, and there's a child.
it would definitely be appropriate to give them a round of applause. So thank you, TC Night Choir. One of the great things I like about what Mr. Bradley is doing with the program is it's not just that he has a goal to have the students perform and perform well, but he's committed to changing the systems that we have in order to allow for greater student numbers and give them more opportunities to perform in meaningful competitive performances. So those are things that he's trying to do to our program, and we can definitely tell that he's getting some good results. So thanks again, Mr. Bradley, and thank you, TCMS Choir. And at this time, I'd like to ask that anyone involved in our Disney crew can come on down. We've got a couple of our choir students who are in the Disney crew, so if they could stick around and join us back up here on the stage. So pre-pandemic, Chief McGraw actually approached me with an idea for sending middle school students to Disney World, the Disney World in Florida. And his idea was, it's taken from a concept that has been used in middle schools in several different parts of the country. But the idea was to give students who were deserving the opportunity of a lifetime to go to Disney World. And so we worked together and came up with some characteristics that we felt were important for all of our middle school students to have. And then we selected students based on did they have those qualities or not. And these are a few of those lucky students that were able to go to Disney World. And when did you guys get back? February 5th. So they just came back from Florida. About the time we were ending that 2 days of ice and snow, they were flying back in from sunny Florida. So I actually got several, I would say, snarky texts from Mrs. Gibson and Mrs. Finney during the ice storm, highlighting the sunny weather that they were having. So Mrs. Finney and Mrs. Gibson, this was their first and last trip to Disney. We're going to be looking for new teachers to go from here on out. But no, seriously, they did a great job. So I want to turn it over to Mrs. Finney and Mrs. Gibson, and they're going to have some of our students just talk about what the trip meant to them.
I like the experience that we all got to have. We all got to spend time together, and I think this built a bond and got a close relationship with the officers and one of the teachers, and I think we all just had a great time. Getting to spend time with everyone, or probably Animal Kingdom.
I liked being on the plane and then just being able to spend time with everybody. No. No.
Right, and then Mrs. Gibson was just going to tell us a little bit about what, from a teacher perspective, what does this mean for our students? What are some of the things that she saw on the trip that we saw our students grow and see the other side of some students that you don't really see in the classroom?
It definitely went both ways, that we were able to see the students in ways we hadn't seen before, and they were able to see the human side of the teachers and of the great police officers and chaperones that were along on the trip. It was mutual. Everyone just got along so well. People from all different types of cliques within the school. As a middle school counselor, I'm always looking at middle school cliques and how do you break those down. This was an awesome way to do that. It was a little bit like the movie Breakfast Club, where you go in and nobody really knows each other, but by the time they've all shared this experience, they come out very well bonded with each other and with the adults. And we couldn't be more proud of what troopers they were. Jason Cullum and his wife Shelley drug us all around that park, and we were happy to be along for the ride. But the kids walked their hearts out, over 100,000 steps over our time in the parks, and that's a lot of walking, and they did not complain one bit. So it was amazing. Officer Riley, would you like to talk about the connection with the police officers?
We promised Jay that he was gonna have at least 1 minute to talk.
Yeah, because I love talking on the mic. What I liked is when we went there, there was one student before we went. We met every Wednesday before we went for several weeks, from the time they was picked until the time they went. And one of the activities that Miss Gibson had was write down something that you're worried about, and made a paper airplane, threw it across the room. No one knew who wrote what. Wrote it down, and this student was scared to be around law enforcement. Probably didn't have the best home life for whatever reason, didn't have the best interaction with law enforcement in the past. And coming back, the students, they wrote thank you letters to the police department and Toyota that funded it, and said that she is no longer scared of law enforcement, which is great, because we're here in the schools as law enforcement, but sometimes we don't connect with all the kids, because 2,000 kids in a corporation and usually 2 officers, so we don't get to connect all of them one-on-one, and this one in particular, we connected, and hopefully it'll have a better outcome in the future.
So a number of great things going on there. Number one, there's a system where all of our kids get to see, that good things come to good kids. So rewarding our students who are exhibiting the qualities that we most want in all of our students. And then also letting our students and community see that, our police officers are here to serve, and seeing that and experiencing that on a major personal level. So a great trip on a number of different levels. So Mrs. Finney also has this awesome picture. That is a real picture, it's not photoshopped. So we're gonna hang that up outside of the gym, and she said that there are 9 more slots out there, and she wants to make sure that she's in all the rest of the 9 pictures. So we'll see. She's gonna have to work on the text I get, but we're excited to see this program move forward, not just next year, but hopefully in the future. So congratulations again, guys. You earned it, and we're really proud of you. Our next, Mr. Salmon is coming up with one of our students, Simeon Sue. Simeon has done something that I think needs to be celebrated. Simeon went to solo and ensemble, and that instrument he's holding is called the euphonium. I had to look it up, but it's very similar to the baritone. And Simeon played a piece called Rhapsody for a Euphonium at the solo and ensemble, and not only did he earn our gold rating, but he also earned an invitation to the state competition, which I believe is this Saturday, Mr. Salmon, is that right? So here's the really cool part. It's great that Simeon earned a gold, because that's a great achievement, but we're pretty sure Mr. Salmon has consulted with Mr. Heineman that no PCMS or PCHS student has ever been invited to the state level of the competition. PCMS student, okay. No PCMS student has ever been invited back to the state competition. We've consulted with local band historian John Green, and she's looking into that. But we're pretty sure that this is a singular honor for Simeon, and so he's going to share a piece of his piece, Rhapsody for Euphonium, with you. Simeon, take it away. But I think you can see why he earned a gold rating. And Simeon, you've earned that through hard work, and good luck on Saturday, and represent us well. This is a one and only thing in the PCMS history, so we're proud of you and we know you do well. So I did want to very briefly, and I promised Mr. McConnell this would be very briefly just give the board a look at what PCMS has in store that's ahead of us. And so I wanted to give you a preview actually of what we're going to talk about with staff here in just a few weeks. To me, I think we can always learn a lot from other disciplines and other arenas. And so been doing some outside reading, and I thought some of the things I was coming across would really, I think, highlight some of the things we're trying to do as staff. So I put together a little presentation. All right, so I talked a little bit about systems tonight, and it's important, I think, to recognize that goals are not the difference when we're talking about the difference between success and failure. Systems that are in place are often what makes the difference. We've been watching, some of us have been watching the Olympics anyway lately, and I don't think there are many Olympians who go to the games and think that they would like to not win a gold. So every Olympian goes to the Olympics thinking they'd like to win a gold. What's the difference between those that do and don't? And I think the important thing to focus on are those systems that those that win have in place versus the goal. They all have the same goal. And there's really no better example of this than the British cycling team. The British cycling team from 1908 to 2003 was, in a word, awful. They won one gold medal in almost 100 years. And in that time, they also had 0 Tour de France victories, which isn't a lot. And then in 2003, and actually one interesting fact, they were so bad that no cycling manufacturers would let them use their equipment because they didn't want other cyclists to see the Brits using their equipment and have it affect their sales. That's how bad they were. Kind of an interesting side note. In 2003, though, all of that changed. They hired this guy, whose name was Dave Railsford, and he wasn't known for anything exceptional other than he had this idea that he called the aggregation of marginal gains. And all that really is fancy words for if you took everything that goes into riding a bike and you improve all those things by 1%, it actually adds up to a lot of improvement. And so that's what he set out to do with the team. And so some of the things that he tried to improve, just to name a few, were they redesigned the bike seats for better performance. They rubbed rubbing alcohol on the tires so that the tires would grip the road better. They used electrically heated bike shorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature. I wouldn't even have thought of that. And they use biofeedback sensors to monitor performance during training and during races to get an idea of when their cyclists are doing well and why. And they tested different suits inside of a wind tunnel to find the one that offered the least wind resistance. They even hired a surgeon to help all of their team members learn how to wash their hands better to try to stay away from more common illnesses like the cold. And they researched mattresses, pillows, and massage gels. Believe it or not, no massage gels, they really did. And the reason for that was to try to improve and maximize their recovery outside of events. And then one last thing is they painted all the insides of their trucks white. The reason they did that, they wanted to be able to spot dirt and dust, and so therefore sweep it out, because a little speck of dust can make a big difference in a finely tuned racing bike. So a lot of little things, those are just a few of the things they tried to improve, and I think you can see where this is going. The improvements added up, but I think you might be surprised as to the scale in which those improvements helped. So, hired in 2003, beginning in 2008, the team won 60% of gold medals at the 2008 Olympics. Going from one Olympic gold medal in almost 100 years, they won 60% of all gold medals in cycling in 2008. And then they followed that up. One Olympics later, they set 7 world records and 9 Olympic records at the 2012 Olympics in London. And in Tour de France, which is basically cycling's biggest event, they won the Tour de France in 2012 and 2013, and then they missed in 2014, but they won the next 3 Tour de France's in a row. And when you add all of the achievements up over 10 years, they won 178 World Championships and 66 combined Olympic and Paralympic gold medals. So, as my grandma Bellhouse used to say, if that doesn't get your fire going, your wood's a little bit wet. So what are the implications for us at North Gibson at PCMS? And I think, to me, we need to make sure we're focusing on our systems, and that's one of the things we're going to be doing moving forward. We have a lot of great things in place. We have a lot of good teachers, we have good administrators, we have a lot of great staff, and we're really, I think, on the cusp of something remarkable. We do just need to refine some of those systems. So some of the things we're going to make sure we do, remember, we don't want to just focus on goals, we've got to refine those systems. And I'm excited about the opportunities we have moving forward. We're looking at our Ipm model, which is going to make sure that we're using those practices in the classroom that are going to give us the most bang for our buck. And we've got a commitment from the community to give us more time and manpower in our instructional coaches to make sure we can see our teachers what they're doing well and help them improve. And then we're talking about PLCs and possibly moving forward with that. And the PLCs, that's really the system that allows us to change and refine all the rest of the systems. So I'm excited about what we have moving forward, and I'm excited to share this with our staff here ahead. So I appreciate the board tonight being my guinea pig for my presentation. And I appreciate everything, do appreciate all the support you guys give us so we can create programs like the choir and our Disney trip and support Mr. Solomon's band. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belkoff, for the presentation. It's wonderful to see the students and the programs that are going on. I'm glad to see the report on the Disney trip and the success of our choir and individual musician. Fantastic to hear that. And I would comment that you stayed under time, and so I commend you on that, because I hear you do have the record, or the distance record, we'll say, in your example. For how long a spotlight went on. So we appreciate the timeliness this evening, as we have a lot before us.
I appreciate the time.
couple of sets of minutes that have been distributed to the board. We have the revised minutes from the January 10th regular session. Revised minutes from the December 20th session. The minutes from the January 10th and January 18th sessions. Those have been distributed to the board, and I would entertain a motion to approve those as distributed, or any corrections that the board may see fit. Motion made to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion made and duly seconded to approve the minutes as distributed. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, I will call for vote.
Online voting is open. Motion to approve the minutes carries unanimously.
Excellent. On to item number 6 on our agenda, where we will consider claim checks 57164 through 57408, vouchers 59085 through 59377, including payroll and deductions and claims. Those have been distributed to the board for their review. I would entertain a motion at this time to approve those claim checks and vouchers.
Make a motion to accept the claims and checks 57164 through 57408 and voucher 509085 through 59377.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion duly made and seconded. Is there any discussion from the board on these claim checks and vouchers? Hearing none, I will call for vote.
Online voting is open. Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent, thank you. And up to item number 7 on our agenda, where we will hear about resignations, retirements, and employment actions for Dr. Goggins.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So we have, under resignations, retirements, and leaves, we have retirement of Mary Nellum, Princeton Community Primary School teacher, resignation of Krisha Ayers as custodian, resignation of Katie Moss as PCIS Special Education Assistant, resignation of Michelle Nagaris as Princeton Community High School volleyball coach, resignation of John Kramer as custodian, and resignation of Marjorie Taylor as Princeton Community Intermediate School Special Education Assistant. Under new hires, I have the following recommendations this evening. Elizabeth Terry as high school guidance counselor. Not sure why we have Marjorie on there. We'll skip that one because I think that was already a resignation. Emily Simpson as intermediate special education assistant. Riley Slinker as a bus driver trainee. And we have the following coaching recommendations. Jane Ballard, middle school boys track. Mitch Breidenball, middle school girls track. Elliot Mattice, high school assistant baseball coach at 2/3 stipend. Brad Stone, high school assistant baseball coach at 1/3 stipend. Brendan Winchief as assistant baseball coach, half stipend. And Alex Sandifer as assistant baseball coach, half stipend. Kylie Kaysen as assistant softball coach. Haley Kennard as assistant softball coach. Brittany Mainers as high school assistant track coach. Zach Wagner, stipend for middle school temporary assistant principal. Patrick Payton, stipend for middle school temporary assistant principal. We have the following instructional coach recommendations. Sarah Cruz, primary school instructional coach. Rebecca Willis, intermediate school instructional coach. And Kayla Hayes as middle school, high school instructional coach. I have the following non-athletic PCA positions. Marissa Breidenball, middle school National Junior Honor Society sponsor. We have Melvin Tapley as a bus driver trainee. And we have additional coaching hires. We have Coach Eric Schnurr as high school head football coach and teacher. We have Coach James Holtzmeyer as high school head softball coach. We have new hire Rick Cockrum as second shift custodian. New hire Austin Robb as a second shift custodian. Non-athletic ECA positions, Tricia Finney as middle school academic coach for math. Will Niederhaus, middle school academic coach for science. Alex Bradley, middle school academic coach for social studies. And Carrie Jones, middle school academic coach for English language arts. I do not, I believe, have any items under FMLA for this meeting. So those would be my recommendations, that the board consider approval of all of those retirements, resignations, leave of absence, and new hires.
Thank you, Dr. Goggins. The board has heard your recommendation. Is there a motion from the board to approve those employment actions?
I make a motion to approve the new hires and resignations.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion made and duly seconded. Any discussion on the motion before the board? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Online voting is open. Motion passes unanimously. So we've got a couple of our new coaching hires. We have Coach Schnur here and Coach Holtzmeyer here. And we're gonna have a reception approximately at 7:30. We're gonna let the two of you at 7:30, if we're still going, and our high school administration go ahead out there to greet people and enjoy some refreshments. But we're very excited, both of these candidates, through the interview process with the board and with our administration at the school level. We're very impressive in their ideas and plans for the program and how to grow that into just be quality coaches and individuals for growing strong young men and women into responsible adults. And we're excited to have you on board. I also want to, we had some retirements in there of some teachers that have been with us for a long time. And we certainly appreciate their years of service to the district. We'll be celebrating those again in May. But certainly want to recognize those that are retiring and thank them as well for their long service to the district. And while we are happy for them to move on and enjoy retirement, we know those are not easy positions to fill as they leave and move on. So, but congratulations, welcome to the district. We won't make you give your 10-minute required speech. We'll let you do that out there individually with all of the community. But if you would like to say something, you're more than welcome to. But welcome. We appreciate you being here this evening.
You're more than welcome to reserve your speaking time until the end of your season, and you can come back and tell us about all the successes you've had. But congratulations to both of you. Thank you to both of you and all of our new hires in the corporation. We appreciate you stepping up and serving your community through the school system, where there is so much need. And thanks to our two new coaches, the stipend we provide for what you're going to do through their coaching is inadequate, but we appreciate your willingness to step up and do that and lead these young people, give them the opportunity and success and heartbreak and all that you learn through the sporting ventures, and thank you for your time. Up next on our agenda, item number 8, where we will reapprove our board attorneys. Mr. Moon has been serving for the past year as the North Gibson School Corporation Board Attorney. He's been fantastic in that capacity. He has done great work for our corporation, and I would make the motion to approve Mr. Moon as the Board Attorney for 2022.
I second it.
And second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Voting is open.
Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Motion carries, but having hired you, the second portion of that was we probably need to pay him as well. I would also make the motion to approve board attorney compensation at $2,500 paid quarterly. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion from the board? I'll call for the vote.
Online voting is open.
Glad that carried. Thank you, again to Mr. Moon for your service to our school corporation. You've done a lot for us in the last year. Unfortunately, we have too many occasions to call upon you, but your wise legal counsel is always well received, and I think, by the hour, the board's getting quite the bargain here, so we appreciate that, your service to the community through the school board. Up next on the agenda, we have, discussion on an FFA crop sharing agreement. Dr. Goggins?
The FFA was presented with an opportunity to enter into a crop sharing agreement and assist neighboring property to the high school that's owned by the Gilbert family, George and Melinda, and farm that property and be able to bring in some additional resources into the program, while also making that a hands-on learning lab opportunity for our students. Had some significant input from Mr. Bluebaum on how the students will be engaging in the farming of that property. At this time, I've also had Mr. Moon review that crop sharing agreement, and I don't believe he had any concerns about the language.
No, I would join Dr. Goggins' motion for recommendation of it.
So it'd be my recommendation that the board approve the agreement for the FFA to enter into a crop sharing service with the Gilbert family.
Excellent. Boards heard the recommendation from the superintendent to approve this FFA crop sharing agreement. Is there a motion from the board?
I'll
So
make a mo-
moved.
No, I second it.
Have a motion made and duly seconded. Enthusiastically. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, I will call for the vote.
Online voting is open.
Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. My sincere gratitude goes out to the Gilbert family for the opportunity they're providing to our FFA organization and students. Item 10 on our agenda is the Black Pixel Studios contract. Dr. Goggins?
In our previous meeting, in the special session we had on talking about projects, I presented an opportunity that we've had to speak with Black Pixel Studios. Mitch Ellis is a community member, and he is a partner in Black Pixel Studios, and they also have some other partner companies in their operation that work on marketing, promotion, branding, and just putting businesses and entities in a position to positively promote the work that they do on a daily basis. I know that's been a goal of the board, as well as our administration, to improve in those areas and put more positive information about the programs we have, and to create a brand that our community can be proud of and buy into, and continuously be relevant. So before you is a 12-month agreement to work with Black Pixel Studios on a monthly retainer, to work on branding, marketing, advertisement, both in print, social media, billboards, different print media such as chamber magazines and newspaper, to help develop videos, publications that will positively promote the district, promote our programs at the schools, promote our athletic programs, and to really take the lead in helping us develop those and forming a vision around positive promotion and publicity of the great things that our teachers, our staff, our coaches, our players, our students, and our administration are doing on a daily basis. So my recommendation, and I'll take any questions you may have, would be that the board consider approving that this evening, and then we will get started immediately with starting our plan for promotions of the district.
Thank you, Dr. Goggins, for your work on this. I know from before joining the board that better communicating to our community what all the good things that are happening within our schools has been a priority of this board for years. We've seen that, we've heard that, we know that that's been an initiative. And as I came onto the board and stepped into the role as board president, it's been a priority of mine, and communicated that with our administration, and I appreciate Dr. Goggins and Mrs. Stow and the efforts that they had in meeting with Black Pixel and coming up with a plan as to how we can better execute that delivery of information to the community and promote all the fantastic stuff that's going on in the North Gibson School Corporation. So I appreciate your efforts, and I would move that we approve the 12-month agreement with Black Pixel Studios.
I'm not against it by all means, no, but the only concern I have, it is very expensive, $7,000 a month. I also feel that we have kids here that are in art, photography, computers, and who knows internet more than kids? They know Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I feel that our kids could do that and promote it for us, and we could sit back and say, hey, look what our kids are doing, look what our kids did, instead of having someone do it for us. And
I appreciate that, Mrs. Bingham, and the floor will be open for discussion on it, but at this point, there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion, any further discussion, Mrs. Bingham?
no, that's all I have to say. I just feel 7,000 a month is a little bit high, steep, which it's a great thing, but I think our kids can handle this and make ads and what have you and promote it. And we can say, look what our kids did, look what our kids are doing, instead of have someone doing it for us.
I appreciate the comment, and I do believe that as we do this correctly, our students will be involved in what we're doing and the messaging that we have going on. And bringing on a professional organization to help us with this is the key move in my opinion. Any further discussion from the board?
Yes, I would just want to get some confirmation from our board attorney as far as reviewing the contract and hear his concerns and if he has any with the contract before we sign.
I was asked to review the contract, and I did so. I do not have any concerns. I would advise that the contract protects the rights of both parties. I don't see any risk inherent in the writing of the contract to the board or to the school corporation. It does, if this for any reason does not work out, with 30 days notice, either side can terminate the contract. So while it does contemplate a one-year relationship, and obviously some of the work that they do will take some time to bring to fruition, you are not necessarily locked in for a year if the relationship doesn't work out. So I think from that perspective, as well as the ownership of certain delivered intellectual property, I think that the school board is well protected. I think that Black Pixel's contract is fair and well written for both sides, and I wouldn't have any problem with you all signing it as proposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolcox, for the question and for the explanation from our attorney. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote.
Online voting is open. Motion carries 4-1 with Mrs. Bingham voting against the motion.
Item number 11 on our agenda is proposal to purchase property that was previously tentatively approved last summer. Dr. Goggins?
So the board had authorized the superintendent, Dr. Harmon, before me and continued with me to pursue purchase of the property on Old 41 here next to the tennis courts and football area. I believe that was owned by the Nixon family. And the board, I've been working with Mr. Moon, with Realtor Tim Mason to get an agreement to purchase that property. We have a tentative purchase agreement for the 7.94 acres plus or minus a total of $130,000 that has been accepted tentatively by the owners. Mr. Moon can explain the process that he's gone through to get to the point of the board being able to approve that or vote on that this evening. So I'll let him talk about that process briefly.
did solicit pursuant to statute 2 appraisals. The agreed price is well below the average of the 2 appraisals. Pursuant to Indiana Code 20-26-7-17, the board's intent to purchase this property was posted at 3 locations within the school district. A notice was published in the Clarion for 2 consecutive Fridays, those being February 11th and February 18th of this year. As such, and because this is a cash purchase, not anything that is being bonded or borrowed on, statutory requirements have been met, and the board is free to make a decision as to this proposed purchase.
All right, thank you, Dr. Goggins and Mr. Moon, for explanation of how we got here. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase of 7.94 acres on Old US Highway 41.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we purchase the property and on the west side of the Nixon ground, south of the school, for the agreed purchase price paid in full.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion made and duly seconded to make the purchase as described. Any discussion from the board?
Yes, I hate to be a Debbie Downer again, but anyway, once again, that is way too high for that property. And it's a floodplain as well. It's just, we have property we don't even use, so I don't know why we need to buy more property that just is gonna sit there.
Thank you, Mrs. Beal. Any other discussion from the board? Hearing none, I will call for the vote.
Online voting is open. Motion carries 4-1, with Mrs. Bingham voting against the motion.
Okay, motion carries. We're moving on to item number 12 on our agenda, VPS contract approved. Dr. Goggins again.
Yes, following our previous special session to talk about potential projects for the next several years, it was established that a project to create parking, see that'd be on the north side of our soccer field, and a drive to that parking was high priority of the board. As we talked, our ability to do all those projects that we talked about are somewhat limited, but we do have the ability to do a few small things now, and this would be one of those. So before you is a contract with VPS Architecture to begin the specifications of that parking lot project and drive project, and then to carry that out and present those specifications to the board, and then carry that out to a formal bid process, and then implement and oversee the project. So before we could move forward any further, we have done a survey of the site that has been completed, which was essential to create the project and to do the specifications. But we are at a holding pattern until we have an architect hired to complete that work and planning. So this will be the next step. If that is approved, Mr. Link will develop the specifications for the project. We'll bring those back to the board for approval. Then that will go out for bidding. Then there'll be a date that those bids have to be returned. They'll be opened in public. And then the board will award the lowest, most responsible bidder. And then the project will move forward. We'll be looking at starting the project hopefully no later than June and wrapping that up hopefully by the end of July, beginning of August. So prior to the soccer season.
If I remember correctly, they're just putting gravel there, correct?
The drive itself and the handicap parking up near the bleacher area will be concrete. The actual parking lot will be stone, and there'll be some curbing so that in the future we can go in and blacktop that if we chose to do so.
If it's just gonna be gravel there, why do we need an architect to do that? We can hire Parker or Aggregation come in and put gravel there for us.
well, there's development based off of surveys and things like that. The board certainly, I believe, could do that. That's not been past practice. Having an architect develop that so that it's properly planned and planned for potential other expansions and uses if we need to grow that parking. And I mean, having an architect engaged is the typical process we do in developing a parking lot and a drive project. But that certainly would be the board's discretion if you wanted to go another direction. But that wouldn't be a typical practice of a school district putting in a new parking lot and drive that would be handicap accessible and developing the best locations for that. Typically an architect would be involved in that. And then they also have engineers who, civil engineers who develop that appropriately under that contract, so.
As I understand it, this will not just be a gravel parking lot, it'll be stabilized before the rock is put on it.
If that is, if the geotech testing stipulates that that stabilization is required, then that certainly would be a part of the bid specifications for that. You know, we can also develop some alternates within those bids for going ahead and blacktopping the parking lot. There will be lighting in that project as well. So I mean, we can definitely do you know, specifications to the desire of the board and put some alternates in there if the board would like to see pricing on different types of lighting. We talked about potentially some solar lighting out there, you know, versus wired lights. We can certainly have some alternates to give some different pricing for the board to consider that you wouldn't have to take, but you could take.
Excellent. So the recommendation before the board is to approve the contract with VPS Architecture for project development on this soccer field parking lot project. Is there a motion from the board?
So moved.
Have a motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion carries unanimously.
Motion carries. On to item number 13 on our agenda, where Dr. Gardens is going to give us a brief update on our in-person learning plan.
Yes, so everyone knows there's been some significant changes in the past week, including a change that comes into place tomorrow from the state level. So on Monday the 14th, we did return to masking optional, so our plan's been updated with that. Students are still welcome to wear a mask if they choose, but it is not required. And then starting tomorrow, the state is eliminating the requirement to do contact tracing in schools for students and staff. We will only be tracking reported positive cases, and they'll have to quarantine for their 5 days, return on day 6 if they're no longer fever or and their symptoms are improving. So we will be returning to our regular practice of students if they report they're ill, they'll go home if they have a fever and or if they're vomiting, and then they will return to school when those symptoms resolve, or if they get a note from their doctor but no longer a negative test required. We're not required to quarantine them for 5 days, 10 days, some days, sometimes 14. That is all ending tomorrow. So all those things are in the plan. We'll be evaluating as an administrative team the other precautionary practices we have in place, such as water fountains, keeping desks 3 feet apart. We're going to start talking about, as we go into this new phase, beginning to remove some of those barriers to instruction in the classroom, and slowly start to pull back on some of those as well in hopes of continuing to see our COVID cases in a positive direction. Our cases have returned to levels that they were prior to the Thanksgiving break. And then they started to rise a little bit with the holidays, but then they were significantly higher in January, but we are back to where we were through most of the fall semester. So I think it's a welcome change. It will be a positive impact on instruction in the classroom, and I'm excited to ask the board to approve those updates in our in-person learning plan.
I'm very pleased to hear that our numbers are getting much better, and that with this new plan, we'll be able to ensure more students stay in the classroom. Recommendation from the superintendent is to approve this updated in-person learning plan. Is there a motion from the board?
might mention also that, on school buses, it's federally mandated that they have to wear masks.
Yes.
Including the driver, till Worston changes that, we're stuck with it.
Appreciate that, Mike, and yeah, that's still something that's beyond the control of the school corporation and the school board. And we'll continue to comply with federal, transportation mandates. Is there a motion from the board on the recommended action?
So moved.
Have a motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second, any discussion on the updated in-person learning plan? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Online voting is open. Motion carries unanimously.
Motion carries. On to item number 14 on the agenda. Voting districts. And we'll hear from Mr. Marginal.
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm bringing this matter to your attention tonight, for informational purposes at this point. Unfortunately, it is not one of the 15 delineated exceptions that allow me to bring it up to you in an executive session. What happens is, we have been approached by an interest group that monitors local government redistricting in Indiana, that looked at numbers from past census in relation to how our electoral districts stack up population-wise. As you know, 4 of you are elected from electoral districts, with Mr. Nolcox being elected at large. Under the law, we're permitted a 10% deviation, and we grossly exceed that. And I think the board needs to at least consider looking at how we structure that. There are a couple of pretty straightforward options that the board could consider. The board could also take the position of doing nothing at all. However, you would potentially invite a lawsuit, and there have been lawsuits on this issue in both Putnam County and Vigo County where redistricting was forced. What I would like to do is I'd like to gather more information to provide you before we have any sort of substantive meeting, and at that point have a special session where we can discuss that at some length, and if you all want to take action, you can. I'd let you know that at this point East Gibson is going through the exact same process based on the exact same information from the recent census. It's likely that possibly even since the census before, there was a lack of compliance, but that information was not being brought to the forefront at that time in the way it is now. So I bring it to you out of concern. Ultimately, it's your decision what to do with it, and I'll provide more detailed information and possibly some recommendations, but I would ask to set a special session to discuss it in greater detail.
Thank you, Mr. Moon, for passing along that information to us and the concern, and we'll make sure we dedicate adequate time on this subject with the board to make sure that we're doing the best we can to comply with legal requirements for representation. Up next on our agenda is item number 15, where we will hear about an out-of-state field trip.
Yes, we have a request for an out-of-state field trip for the high school anatomy and physiology class. That's 9 students and 1 teacher, chaperone, to attend class at Wabash Valley College on March 18th. Because that is crossing state lines, it is required for board to approve the transportation out of state, which is required by statute. So it'd be my recommendation that the board approve that opportunity for those 9 students and the 1 teacher to attend Wabash Valley College for class.
Thank you, Dr. Goggins. The board has before a recommendation to approve that out-of-state field trip. Is there a motion from the board?
So moved.
Have a motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion on this out-of-state field trip for Wabash Valley College? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Online voting is open. Motion carries unanimously.
Item 16 on on our agenda, Dr. Gardner's going to talk about a donation that we received.
Yes, we had an individual, Sarah Talley, who donated an acoustic upright piano to the middle school choir program, which we heard this evening. Be my recommendation that the board approve accepting this donation as now ownership of the school, and we will maintain that in the choir program and whatever it takes that's required for tuning that every few years. And it is a very nice piano, but because it is a large piece and expensive piece, it is required that the board accept that donation. So it would be my recommendation that the board approve acceptance of that upright acoustic piano for the middle school choir program.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. We've heard the recommendation. I'd extend to our resident musician the opportunity to make a motion to approve this acceptance of the donation.
I make a motion.
I have a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any discussion? All those in favor, or I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Voting is open. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, item 17 on the agenda is additional agenda items.
Have no items under other.
Awesome. And then we'll hear reports from Dr. Goggins and Mr. McConnell shortly thereafter.
Just a couple of, as brief as I can be, items. In the previous special session, I was asked by Mrs. Bingham regarding our bonds, so I wanted to make sure that I brought that information back to the board. In this meeting, a question was asked, how many bonds do we have? We currently have the following bonds. So we have pension bonds of 2003, and we have our first mortgage bond series, 2015A, which is middle school renovations. We have first mortgage bond series 2015B, which was also middle school renovations. Then we have first mortgage bond series 2019, which was primary school renovations and expansions. We have first mortgage bond series 2019, which was refund of mortgage bonds from series 2009, which was the high school bond refinancing. And then we also have first mortgage bond series 2019B, which was our bus purchases, football bleacher, press box, walkway fencing, that was most recently done. So I provided you with specifics of those. I believe at some point I may have even emailed you specifics about that a few months ago. But in your packets there you have information about the outstanding amounts of those bonds and when the last payment will be on each of those. And you'll see that we have some bonds that are, for example, the 2003 pension bonds are being paid off in January of 2024. We have our 2015 A and B bonds, which were middle school renovations, are being paid off in December of 25. And then our first mortgage bonds, 2019B, are, which was the bus purchases and bleachers. The last payment on this is actually December of 2022. So we have 4 of our 6 bonds will actually be paid off at the end of 2025 or sooner. So just wanted to provide that information as it was asked of me. The other 2 are the primary school project. Last payment of that will be in December of 2038. So those, that was a more recent bond project. And that was part of an initial bond. No, the refund, which would be the high school. If you remember when we did that refund, we didn't change the term of the bond payments because we took the refund, which was that $1,340 or $1,340,000 that's outstanding. We took that and money back to fund our football, bleachers, press box, and bus purchases. So those are being paid off in 2022, at the end of 2022. But the remaining refinance bonds from the high school are still on that original term of being paid off in June of 2029. And that is our largest, most outstanding debt.
The reason why I asked, I didn't get that.
Oh, you can't? It's under the executive content, maybe you guys can't see
I
that.
can see it on 18. It's at the bottom.
So if you look on my report, not on mine on 18. That's fine, I got the information, I'll just, there it is. Okay, where was it at?
For some reason, theirs just hadn't switched over to that new, you changed it, it was highlighted on my reports.
Yeah.
But the information was still showing the donation.
Okay.
So it just hadn't for some reason, but it's there.
All right.
The other piece I wanted to share briefly, one of the things we've been talking about for a while when we've been doing work with EES is finding time for teachers to collaborate. And I will bring this as a formal proposal at our next regular session. But we've been working on a plan with our administrative team and discussions with the Teachers Association of implementing a Wednesday late arrival. So every Wednesday, starting next school year, students would arrive by 8:30 rather than 8 being our start time. And so our doors would open for everyone from 8 to 8:30. They come in, have breakfast. We'll be, if things trend the way they are now, we'll be going back to those common gathering places for the start of next school year. And students would gather for that 30 minutes, have breakfast, prepare for the day, while our teachers are starting at 7:45 and working until 8:30 with their collaborative grade level teams doing professional learning communities, referred to as PLCs by Mr. Velthouse. That's professional learning community. And that would be time where we're looking at data, we're looking at our instructional improvements, doing professional development, doing forward planning on our lessons, doing submission and creation of assessments based off of our results, and planning reteaching and remediation. It's just a time we don't currently have to be able to accomplish the things that are in front of us. So I plan to bring that back to the board for consideration. I just wanted to get it out there for public knowledge that we're looking at that. We will have a plan in place for those parents who are used to getting their students here and need to be at work by 8 o'clock, where they can still go to their building from 7:45 on to get there 15 minutes earlier. We'll have someone to watch them. And we'll make sure everybody gets breakfast. So we have ways that we'll address some potential concerns that might be a hindrance of starting 30 minutes later, and make our building available and supervised for those students who need to arrive early. They can sign up for that, so we know how many are attending, and we'll be well prepared and use support staff to cover that. So I think we can address some issues, but it would give us an extra 45 minutes of time to work with teachers while only affecting 30 minutes of instructional time for our students. And then we would like to keep our 2-hour early releases once every 9 weeks. And on those weeks we have early release, we would be communicating with our community that we won't do late arrival that week. Instead, we're doing a 2-hour professional development early release so that we can spend 90 minutes like we're doing to do really significant professional development with EES, continuing in our instructional priority model work. So I've done the minutes. We've got plenty of minutes in our flexibility waiver, that this wouldn't affect our ability if we have a significant weather issue or an event that caused us to miss a lot of school beyond our makeup days, which would cause us to lose summer school time if we had to add days. We still would have some flexibility in there to have a couple of days, but it would require us to continue to use a flexibility waiver and apply for. But this is the reason that the state has those waivers. It's not for not making up school days. It's for innovative ways to improve our instructional practices, provide time for teachers to plan, and to use it in that manner. So I will bring this back and spend a more significant time as an actual agenda item, but I just wanted to lay that out there for some discussion if the board wants to have that this evening. I have around thoughts with that, but we will, I think the biggest concern I can think of would be those parents who need to get kids here before 8 o'clock, and we will have a solution for that in each building.
Good to hear that. And I'm hopeful, I appreciate you thinking outside of the box to come up with more time for our teachers to work on that improvement so we can achieve that aggregation of marginal improvements.
Yep. I think, and from input from teachers, I think this is the one area we were hearing both in our initial meetings of just having open discussion and talking about strategic planning, We've continued to hear it in our administrative association discussion meetings every month that, hey, we're seeing the purpose of what we're doing, we're seeing some good things. We really still want to focus on getting us some time to really work on that work as a collaborative team and not just once every 9 weeks in training. So this is a way we can do that, and it is becoming more common practice across school districts in Indiana. So I will bring that back. The last thing I will say is we may be looking at, I'll know more tomorrow at 10:30, another weather event coming in. Of course on Thursday where we have an early release to do professional development. I don't want to lose that time. My worry right now is if the weather's still trending the way they're saying it may, if we had a 2-hour delay or a requirement, we're going to lose that time. So if the forecast is still trending where it was this afternoon when we have our call with the weather service tomorrow, I'm likely going to make the decision to push that late or early release for 1 o'clock to next Thursday. I've already confirmed with our trainers that are coming from EES to do our instructional priority model training. This is our first big training with them, other than our curriculum work we've been doing. And they're concerned about getting here from the Indianapolis area, Crawfordsville area. They're all over the state because they're going to get more weather than we are. So I will likely make that call to push that to next Thursday and communicate that out to parents tomorrow.
Thank you for keeping us apprised of those issues.
That's all I have.
Mr. McConnell? Not yet.
The light's on, but I can't hear you.
Mr. Belthouse was quick today.
Try it again.
All of the broadcast. All of that.
Try it again.
Have you heard, is it banana punch?
Always is.
Okay, good to know. I appreciate your efforts in getting all the facilities and keeping them in order and getting ready for the change of seasons again.
I'll have to work on that one tomorrow.
Item number 19 on the agenda is
There should be
reserved for patron statements. School patrons who wish to address the board may do so during this time. We will not discuss in open session any individual school student or school employee or descriptions of such people which will leave little doubt as to the identity of these people. Dr. Goggins, Superintendent of Schools, and myself will be available after the meeting to discuss any concerns expressed by patrons. Do we have any patron statements this evening? Item 20 on the agenda is board member statements. Do we have any statements from board members this evening?
I would like to recognize that a longtime bus driver, Tony Hensley, passed away. His funeral will be tomorrow. He drove for the corporation for over 40 years. And in fact, he hasn't really been retired that long. So I'd like everybody to keep it in their mind that he gave a lot of service in a time when it was very difficult to drive to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other board member statements?
I was going to say something about House Bill 1134, but from what I hear, it's been drastically modified by state House and Senate. So I want to thank Mr. Williams for driving us up to Indianapolis last week, and I thought it was a very beneficial meeting. Met with Congressman Hofstetler. We met with, had some informative discussion with the Education Committee members, and also the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem. So it was very productive, and the ISBA is doing a great job as far as, being a lobbyist for, education in the state of Indiana, so, appreciate that, and, it looks like, we're going to have some, legislation that's not going to be too, obtrusive to the learning process in schools going forward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Nocox. I appreciate you going along with me up to the State House. It was a good experience. It was great to be able to talk with our lawmakers and hear their rationale behind why these bills are moving in the direction that they're going, and you know, use our voice and bring the perspective of rural southwestern Indiana to the State House and make sure that we're heard. I believe we have been heard, and I especially appreciate our administrators and our teachers who reached out to myself and Mr. Nocox and shared their opinions about upcoming legislation and how our government can do better to serve our students through our schools. And
We will
appreciate the opportunity.
continue to do that going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other board member comments?
I'm not a board member. I meant to say it earlier. I appreciate the vote of confidence in renewing my contract. I very much enjoy the work and the opportunity, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. If there's nothing further to come before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote.
Yeah, Ms. Bingham, were you able to?
Oh, sorry.
Motion carries, we are adjourned.
We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.